Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. This is Kelvin Lee for Forensics 2 in Miss Juisa's or Juisa's. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that name wrong. Her class. And recently we were given an assignment in which we were to watch the video pertaining to a case that was taken up within the criminal justice world in 2017 that tied to a death. And the death was that of Ellie Tran. Ellie Tran was the mother of a young girl and the victim of someone who murdered her, that someone being her boyfriend slash the father of her child, Joseph Molina III. Now, the question we are asked, there are 5 particular questions that we are asked to break down this video. The first one being exactly, the first one being the question of what type of poison was used. Well, the type of poison that was used to kill Miss Tran was a drug called cyanide. Everybody knows cyanide is usually the death pill, or what they would call the suicide pill, because that's exactly what it does. It kills you. And while another question states how long does cyanide take to affect, there's never really given a time, and I never was able to really pinpoint a time down in the video or anywhere else. But it's usually said to take effect immediately and be very effective. The way the cyanide works is that it basically shuts down your immune system. It shuts down your immune system by making you compose, making your breathing slow down, stagnated, or poisoned to your own body. You get heart rhythms and everything to the point where you can't function. And after all that, your brain shuts down. And that is exactly what happened to Miss Tran. Except for the fact that there was a little bit more involved with her case. Her boyfriend attacked her. First he ambushed her. And through that ambush, of course, she was already frantic and scared and everything. So what it means, she possibly could even be recognizing or comprehending what was going on completely. But then she also ended up hurting herself, or he hurt her, which means she's also in pain, which means she's already not functioning at 100%, and that she's probably moving funny and everything. But the next thing that he actually did was he basically used a drug or a chemical, I don't really know how to describe it, called DMSO. And DMSO is basically, so y'all know we have skin barriers, like stuff to protect us from like infections and stuff from getting to our skin and messing up our body. DMSO basically is something that breaks down the barriers of the skin for absorption to be more efficient. So he basically used DMSO on her, I guess in a way where he could make sure that the cyanide would work even if it wasn't going to, or just in case he had to do like an extra step into something like poison her even further or break her body down, like the immune system or something. I don't think it's explicitly said why he used DMSO, but together, the DMSO combined with the cyanide made her body very poisonous to the point where the toxicologists and everybody else involved, they had to basically block off that area for a certain amount of time to let people know not to come near it, because if you breathe it in, it gets on you, you could die. And toxicologists have to be really, when you're dealing with forensics, you have to be careful already, but they had to be like very dainty, not to pick stuff up too fast, not to breathe stuff in, not to do anything, because anything they could have done could have put them at risk as well, because her body was so open and poisonous. But yeah, outside of that, it's like the way he did it was he injected her. I guess he injected the cyanide to her with a stainless steel syringe that was vintage that he bought, which we will touch on a little bit. But I'm guessing like with the DMSO, I think they say he used a syringe for that too. I don't know. I know that cyanide comes in many different ways. Cyanide comes in a gas, it comes in a pill, it can come in many different ways. And I think they said that, I can't remember if they said if the DMSO was what he injected to her, or if it's the cyanide that he used for the syringe. But anyway, it goes. That's how she ended up dying. She ended up being taken to the hospital where she was comatose and established as brain dead immediately. Her her family had to decide to pull the plug, unfortunately. Um, but like as far as like the toxicology and everything, they they was able to like look at her body and find that they did microscopic scans of her body and stuff to find the syringes and everything to know that she did in fact get murdered because the way the syringes were positioned, they're not something that she could have done herself. And of course, when you're a little girl, you're trying to do your own life. Why would you just kill yourself? Wasn't a backup plan for the little girl anyway. But outside that, like I said, her body being already open to all of this poison and her brain being dead as a result of it was just inevitable at that point. Her breathing and everything was already starting to be poisonous to her. Outside the toxicology report, they found a lot of different evidence, like technology-wise and everything. Like, first of all, Joseph, he had a secret storage where all the cyanide was kept. Then he had like all this information on his computer from like auto fillings of like addresses, different research he did into how long cyanide works, how the cyanide works, where he can get cyanide, where he can get a mask so he can keep himself safe from the breathing and everything. He established a girlfriend. I don't think it's ever said if he actually cared about the girlfriend, but I think the thought was that he established his girlfriend to make sure he had an alibi. And he was talking to his mom or her mom as well to make sure he had like backup plans and contingencies in place just in case he ever came up. But outside of that, yeah, like it's like he went through all this extra work. He bought stuff that you never really think to buy. He did all this research, and it's like, on one hand, I find this case very interesting because it's someone who wants to be a detective, who likes putting pieces together, who's also been a part of the biology and the medical world, who loves comics and stuff like that, who wants to be a profiler. I see this in many different ways because it's like there's this logic in some of my comic books that I've read that says prepare for everything to be ready for anything, and he had everything planned out. Like he is one of the best villains in the real life I have ever seen because he was so methodical and calculating, and he had all of this planned out. But he was very manipulative. He tried to make himself the bad guy. He was the bad guy. He tried to make himself look as innocent as possible, which is more or less what you try to do typically to try to avert people from paying attention to you. But other than that, it was like it's really interesting because it's like at the same time for someone who also loves psychology and philosophy and history, you think about it, it's like for this to be so methodical and messed up is scary. First of all, for you to kill someone you so-called love on Valentine's Day, but on Valentine's Day, we're not going to get into the whole mindset I have when it comes to Valentine's Day, where I think it's one of the dumbest ideas ever. But that's messed up for you to portray love like that, no matter what the reason is. But it's like, how far could he have taken this? Because it's like, on one hand, if you were to take a character like this and put him into like the FBI or whatever, he could be one of the most accessible, most valuable intellects, most valuable people on the force, right? He can help people. He can profile people's reasonings, methods, tell them exactly what's about to happen next, character-wise, their motives, everything. Perfect for solving any case, getting most cases done quickly and more efficiently, and fixing the criminal justice world, right? But on the other hand, when you're looking at people who do stuff like this, who are, for all intents and purposes, mad scientists or mad geniuses, and they're looking at all the different ways in which you have people who are creating drugs or creating viruses, or who is just very vindictive or whatever. How far could he have taken this? How big of a threat could he have moved? And what's the most wildest or biggest thing he probably could have accomplished, or the reason behind it? Because it's like, when it comes to his reason, that they believe it was due to the fact that he may have been feeling envious or vindictive for his girlfriend at the time breaking up with him and then wanting to leave into a new life. So he wanted revenge and wanted to have them to himself. And while I can see that being a possibility, at the same time, I honestly think it goes deeper than that because you don't see someone doing all of this research, all of this planning, all of this buying and everything just to say, you took my daughter away from me. I want revenge. Most of the time, it's just a custody battle. You don't say, I don't want you with no one else. You don't say, I just don't want you with no one else, so I'm going to kill you. I'm going to poison you with this. No. Usually it's just that I'm going to fuck up all your relationships. Sorry for my language. I'm going to sabotage all your relationships. I'm going to tell them that you're cheating. I'm going to be a nuisance to their ass. It's something. You never see it this way. So I'm personally thinking a few things. And I'm going to save those few things for my replies when it comes to everybody else's answers because I know we have to do that and I don't want to leave my answers as simple or as arbitrary as nice job or whatever. And I really want to engage people's thoughts and stuff when it comes to this because this is a very, very interesting case. Like I said, on one hand, I find him very fascinating. He's someone I'm finding really intriguing due to the processes and the mental capacity that he has. But at the same time, this is something very, very scary that is like nerve-wracking at the same time. That he can rationalize anything in this manner, or that he would go to such lengths, or that he would tie this to the concept of love. It's very, very messed up. But yeah, like I have a few thoughts and questions about his dynamic with his daughter or his mental health or whatever. But like I said, I'll say those. But yeah, like I find this really interesting because it's like at the same time, it's like I don't know if they still do this, but I know there used to be a show called like America's Most Wanted. And like I said, the way that he was before he got sentenced or whatever, looking at what he was doing, like his planning and all that, like I said, he is one of the best real life supervillains I've ever seen. I guarantee you, he would have been up there in that top ranking because this was some evil crap. But like, if you want to look at it from like a mad scientist point of view, or people who create drugs and viruses to kill people, or people who are just out and vindictive and trying to sabotage politics or whatever. He could be one of the most dangerous people within history or within the Western civilization. And I find it very interesting because, like, again, how far could this have gone? How much of a threat could he have become if it wasn't so contained? And when it comes to containment, that's what I think he failed at. Because it's like, while he kept it contained, in a sense where he had enough sense to have a mask on and that not affect everybody else, the thing that caught him up, eventually he was going to get caught. Eventually, it was inevitable and to get caught with all, because he spread himself too thin. He spread himself too thin. But not only did he spread himself too thin, the fact that he tried to establish himself as an icon or a boogeyman messed him up. Because now, instead of people just being fearful of you, people are looking at all the things you said, tying them to the history of other people, or trying to put pieces together. And those pieces are somehow making a connection. So now, instead of people just fearing you, they're able to fear you in a way that makes logical sense to them. So it's no longer a fear. You should have just kept that secret. You should have just kept your mouth shut and tried to remain a secret instead of trying to establish yourself as some type of mythological community figure. That's one. And two, all of the evidence, trying to establish yourself too thin. Like, when it comes to cases like this, sure, you want to try to make yourself look as innocent and guilt-free as possible. So you're trying to make sure that you have the records and stuff to say that you was here so you won't be attached to a thing. But again, if you had true motivation and weren't just very manipulative, because you went from establishing a relationship with a girl and a mom in another country for an alibi. You went to this restaurant to eat too many times and got a package that already put you on the spot because now people are recognizing you. People are recognizing you, they're recognizing your patterns. And now you made that one difference from your pattern. That's already caught up right there. And then the fact of the matter is that you left all these traces. You left computer traces and all this other stuff. I was doing all this research for what? No one does that. You spread yourself too thin. You try to establish yourself as a mythological figure. You should have just kept quiet. Should have just kept quiet and tried to blend. But that's where you failed at. Outside of the normal cockiness, and I say cockiness because it wasn't confidence no more. When you get to confidence, there's a difference between confidence and cockiness. You spread yourself too thin and thought you had all these contingencies planned out that eventually that cockiness turned to hubrisness, and you thought that you was already straight when you might have been straight, but now because of everything you got going on, now you're slacking on keeping yourself guarded. You got protected. And I'm not saying that he should have done something different not to get away with it. I'm not trying to advocate for him being dumb or trying to be a better criminal. I'm just saying that's where he failed at. But to our professor, thank you for this case that you gave us. I love this. This is my favorite assignment that we have had so far because this was very interesting. That someone who was able to be a part of it. I hope you learned a lot and was able to establish a lot about yourself and about the world without becoming cynical or whatever. But I also hope you enjoyed it. Not in a way where the case is enjoyable because, of course, a family's life was ruined, someone died, and all the drama involved. But this is a case where I hope that you love your job and that you love applying the knowledge and breaking it down the same way I just did, or you was able to find some type of positive reinforcement mentally in like all of the creative ways that this could have been expanded and stuff. So I really hope you enjoyed it. I wish I was at your level because I wish I could be a part of a case like this. And I'm hoping like eventually in the future I will be able to be a part of a significant case like this because I think this is significant. Like we've seen a lot of cases that we already dealt with when it comes to some of our assignments, but this is the most fascinating one because of, like I said, the way he planned it out and the way it was tied to Valentine's Day and everything. But yeah, guys, those are my responses. I can't wait to see y'all videos, and I can't wait to engage y'all with these conversations, questions, thoughts that I'm leaving purposely. I'm purposely leaving them to ask y'all about them, so I won't just leave y'all with dry responses. But yeah.